This is the 4-1BB pathway. T cells here are naive and inactive. But now, a predator arrives. These macadamia nuts are APCs, training T cells. The 4-1BB pathway activates.
In this video, I'm going to be explaining some nuts, or a variety of nuts and some seeds that can help T cells and other immune cells. Also, I'm going to be explaining the 4-1BB T cell co-stimulatory pathway, or CD137. Okay, so there's a ligand, the 4-1BBL, that's usually on antigen-presenting cells. So the antigen-presenting cells, or APCs in short, they are responsible for training T cells so that they are not naive. Because naive T cells, they can't really battle cancer cells. Okay, so the 4-1BBL ligand, it does favor NF-κB activation, but in a pulsatile and not chronic manner. So NF-κB, it can help T cells, but it's bad if it's chronic and ongoing. So if you've seen my CD27, CD70 videos, you'll already know what I'm talking about. But basically, if NF-κB goes on too long, then the T cells will become exhausted and rendered useless against cancer. So T cells, they interact with the APCs, or short for antigen-presenting cells. So the T cell has the 4-1BB receptor, and then the APC has the 4-1BBL, and that's how both cells interact via those two receptors that they each have, so that the APCs are training the T cells. So the ligand 4-1BBL recruits TRAF1/2, so that's what the APCs do, and this upregulates a mitochondrial fusion for better energy efficiency. So that's critical for the immune system. The immune system needs ATP to be able to function. Also, this boosts fatty acid oxidation, so that it's possible that the immune system can even function under low glucose environments. So the boosting of mitochondria, because of TRAF1/2, it does upregulate fatty acid oxidation. That's critical for T cells, because T cells, they also use glucose, but they can't use glucose in a hostile tumor microenvironment, because the tumors, they consume massive amounts of glucose via the Warburg effect. So tumors consume glucose usually by GLUT1 and GLUT3 transporters, and but there won't be any glucose left over for T cells. So T cells need another substrate, or another form of energy, which is going to be fatty acid oxidation by the mitochondria. So what's great about the 4-1BB pathway and the enabling of the fatty acid oxidation is that it sustains T cells towards a longer-term survival and proliferation, as well as cytotoxicity, but without pushing them into terminal exhaustion, which is what would happen under CD27, CD70 axis. Because APCs, they also have CD70, but that could end up pushing T cells towards being exhausted because of ongoing NF-κB as a result of the CD27, CD70 axis. Okay, so via the CD27, CD70 axis, this explains why it's not really the best or the most favorable way to boost T cells, because T cells, they can proliferate and become activated via CD27 T cell and then CD70 on the APC. But the problem with that is that tumors, they can actually reprogram antigen presenting cells so that they end up exhausting the T cells instead. instead of boosting T cells to fight cancer cells, because APCs via CD70, they can boost or make T cells proliferate and upregulate T cells via the CD27 on the T cell. But this can be problematic if tumors end up turning the APCs against the T cells instead. So T cells, they have more signaling bandwidth, and with the uh, T cells, they can respond to 4-1BB co-stimulation effectively instead of responding or instead of binding to the CD70. So this is crucial in tumors that overexpress CD70, which will otherwise exhaust T cells. Okay, now on to some nuts and seeds that can help. So the first one is macadamia nuts, has a monounsaturated fatty acids, and this enhances fatty acid oxidation. So that's great for T cells to use fats as fuel if the tumors are hogging glucose away from T cells. Also, macadamia nuts, they also support the 4-1BB metabolic pathways. This way, the T cells can use the 4-1BB pathway to proliferate instead of using the CD27 CD70 axis that would otherwise exhaust the T cell. So macadamia nuts are having a double whammy effect. Pistachios are also great for T cells to proliferate because pistachio supports arginine. So T cells can use arginine to proliferate. Also, pistachios have MUFAs to support mitochondrial health, to provide ATP for T cells. So these could be other options for T cells to proliferate instead of using CD27 CD70 axis. So pecans also have MUFAs, so supporting mitochondria for T cells, supports NF-κB modulation without chronic overactivation. That's critical so that the T cells do not become exhausted from excessive NF-κB. Next is peanuts, also has MUFAs, so also allows mitochondria for T cells. Also an anti-inflammatory because cancer cells, they gravitate towards areas of inflammation. It's also important to reduce the inflammation because if there's too much, it actually acts like a smoke screen between the T cells and the cancer cells. So like it's like an analogy. The T cells, they can't see the cancer cells, or the T cells, they get kind of confused or get mixed signals when there's too much inflammation. So the T cells, they can't really effectively fight and battle of the cancer cells. Another great one here is the pumpkin seeds. They support a thymic function. So the thymus is like the training camp for T cells to upregulate the number of T cells, especially in a hostile tumor microenvironment where the T cells could be exhausted without enough glucose. But extra T cells can come in for the rescue from the thymus. And also pumpkin seeds, they provide a tryptophan for metabolism for T cells. So that gives T cells another option to proliferate and to be upregulated by tryptophan instead of using CD27, CD70 axis as a way of proliferating, since the tumors can reprogram the APCs to exhaust the T cells instead of upregulating them. So quick recap, 4-1BB is on the T cell, 4-1BBL is on the APC. Macadamia nuts are great for upregulating 4-1BB pathway so that the T cell can use 4-1BB instead of CD27. Pecans also and pistachios, they provide MUFAs as well as vitamin E to reduce inflammation, because inflammation can act as a smokescreen between T cells and cancer cells, and the T cells cannot effectively battle cancer cells with too much inflammation. So that's it for the video. Like, share, and comment if you want more future videos. Keep it locked on my channel, and I'll see you next time.